Coming up in this episode of iCantCU, I'll talk about 2 trips out of town that I took, both via rail. Stick with me.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the iCantCU podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 265 of iCantCU. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I'm really glad you're here for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, I did mention I have 2 trips to talk about. That's a lot less than how many times I've tried to record this podcast. I've had new computer issues, new camera issues, not new mic issues, but just some issues. Different connections. I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping that this is it. I'm hoping. This is at least the 4th, maybe the 5th time that I've tried to record this episode. And I apologize if my head is pretty shiny today because Ziggy has been licking it like crazy. I don't know why he does that. Maybe I've got something going on up there. Who knows? But let's get into it. So I did mention 2 trips. The first trip I took was to Harrisburg, and that was an overnight trip to talk to folks at the Lions Club during the exhibit hall hours of their state convention in Harrisburg. And I took the train out, not an issue. What I thought was funny, once I got to the Harrisburg train station, I ordered an Uber. The Uber came. Now, the hotel that we were at, called the Red Lion Hotel, isn't in downtown Harrisburg. It's outside of town, far outside of town, to the point where we needed to jump on the interstate to get to it. I was amazed when I saw how far it was, after knowing that I was only going to pay $11.99 for the trip, and then I ended up tipping the guy $2. Kind of gave me a little sightseeing tour and pointed stuff out as we were driving along. But $14, I guess. $14 to get, I was in the car probably about 15 minutes, maybe a little more. I can't get 2 miles from my house without it being that much, including tip. And I was just amazed at that. The other thing that I was amazed at, well, not amazed, but disappointed at, I guess. As I've mentioned before, when there is something that's very busy, whether it's a whole bunch of stuff on a counter or a tabletop, you could hide something from me in plain sight because there's just so much there. I wouldn't be able to figure it out. Just like when I go into the fridge, if somebody moves, let's say my blueberries, I will not find them in the fridge because there's all sorts of other things going on. Well, like most hotels, and I especially thought of casinos with this hotel, even though it wasn't a casino, the carpet was very busy. And the hallway, once I found out how to get to my room after the person at the front desk said, yeah, you just can take the elevator right over there. And I said, when you say over there, are you pointing somewhere? Tell me where over there is by direction. And she said, over your left shoulder. And I said, is there a way that I could go without taking an elevator? And I'm not sure, after I did it without taking an elevator, I'm not sure how I would take it with the elevator. But she said, walk down this very long hallway. And so I walked down this very long hallway, and it was long. But I guess the grade of the outdoor was kind of hilly because there were times when I would walk up a slight ramp or down a slight ramp. And maybe back in the day, maybe they had stairs there. But when I was walking several times, and again, I walked fairly quickly, I nearly stumbled when it was a slope downward because I couldn't tell by my vision. And I was going so quickly that by the time my cane made it realize to me that I was on a downward slope, I had already taken 1 or 2 steps down. And like I said, one time nearly stumbled. Nothing too exciting about the room. It was pretty big. It did have a coffee table. I had a bed, and then I had a couch and a coffee table area. Well, the coffee table was right in the middle of the room. The room was very dark, and the coffee table was very dark. So the first thing I did was move the coffee table out of the middle of the room and up against a wall so I wouldn't stumble on it, because at some point in time I would have stumbled on it or hit my shin on it, just like I almost stumbled over the dishwasher door last night while I was waiting to do something before loading up the dishwasher. So other than that, nothing too exciting with the convention. I was in the exhibit hall for 2 days over a 3-day span. Lynn Heights, the president of the NFB of Pennsylvania, was there for a Thursday. I was there for Friday and Saturday along with her, and a couple other folks came out too to help out. But it was interesting to talk to folks there. I talked to one gentleman who had no idea about Be My Eyes or Seeing AI. And I explained what they did, and he was very excited to try it out. And then that was on Friday. I saw him the next day and he said, yeah, I got the one and I'm really excited to try the other one. And I was really excited that I was able to help him. Now, one issue, most of the folks at the Lions Club are not blind or visually impaired, but the ones who were, it was nice to see them there and talk about our organization. And we were also obviously talking about the NFB of Pennsylvania to the sighted folks, because the Lions Club helps a lot of organizations like ours, whether it is with monetary donations for certain things or whatnot. So we're making that connection, and I'm hoping that we can get maybe one or two of the folks on White Canes Connect, and it'll be interesting to see. And hopefully we can work something out together moving forward, because it really would be beneficial for both organizations. Otherwise, the Harrisburg trip was bing, bang, boom, nothing exciting. Got to take a picture with Leo the Lion, who is the Lions Club mascot. You can have a look at that over on Instagram once the episode dropped. The other trip I took was to New York City, and I was going there for a couple of reasons. Well, I was going there for one primary reason, and that was to give some feedback on the beta version of the Yahoo Fantasy app. And I was excited to go for a couple of reasons. I was going to have lunch with my friend Brian. I was going to get to go to Jane's office and meet some of her coworkers. And if time permitted, I was going to go to B&H Photo. Well, spoiler alert, I didn't make it to B&H. And maybe I should have with my issues with, with everything here. But I took the train to New York, obviously. I left the house with Liz when she was going to work. She dropped me at the Swarthmore train station. I shot some B-roll there because I got there a little early. And then I got to 30th Street Station in Philly a little early than I needed to. So I shot some more B-roll. And unfortunately for you watching on YouTube, you you see what I did. I found the time-lapse button, and that's what you're watching now. Now, the funny story about what you're watching now, I had found it, and I was in another section of the train station, and I shot what felt like about 3 or 4 minutes, but when I watched it, it seemed like it was over like that. And I thought, okay, I've got to shoot for a longer amount of time. So I moved to a different location right in front of the big message board that talks about the trains coming and going and their times and their gate numbers and whatnot. And I just held the phone up about chest level, and I hit the record button, and I could hear a guy off to my right doing maintenance, emptying the trash cans and recycling cans. And I thought, okay, let's see where he's going. And once he's done, that's when I'll stop shooting. He finished up over on the right side of me, and he slowly crossed in front of me until he got to another set of cans on my left. And I thought, okay, once he finishes there, that's when I'm going to stop, because I had been shooting for probably 5 minutes at this point. And I don't know if he's talking to someone. He was just far enough ahead of me, probably 10 or 15 feet in front of me and off to my side. So I couldn't tell if he was talking or what he was doing. Maybe he was on the phone. I don't know. But it took him a long time, to the point where there's a guy that comes up and he pauses. I don't know if he's looking at the board. I don't know if he's looking at his phone, answering a text message. I don't know what he's doing, but he's there for a couple of minutes. And meanwhile, that guy is still over at the trash and recycling bins in front of me on my left. And I'm like, my arms are getting tired. I just wished he would finish and move on so I could hit the stop button, because I wasn't going to hit stop until he started to move away from those cans. And then finally he did. And I don't know how long the video is, the time lapse, but it goes on for quite a bit. If I'm not showing the whole thing now, that's why. But I'll have most of it on there, I'm hoping. So it comes time, I get on the train, no issues. When we get close to the station, the conductor makes the announcement, next and final stop, Penn Station, Moynihan Train Hall, New York City. If you want to go into Moynihan, go all the way down to the left. After you exit the train, go to the left and go all the way down. At the end of the train, is where the stairs that go up into Moynihan. So I knew that if I got off and went to the left and took the first stair or escalator up, I was going to end up in Penn Station. So I passed at least one, maybe two, and I felt like I had been walking a while. I felt like I should have been at the end of the train, and it was a door where people were getting off, and I kind of got swept into them, and I just went up those stairs. Well, then I realized when I got upstairs, I wasn't in Moynihan. It sounds different. It's got a different look. Penn is almost, I guess, a different color. Moynihan is much brighter. I don't know if it's because of they have the big giant message boards with that or electronic billboards. I don't know if it's that. I don't know what the difference is, but it's a much cleaner, brighter place. And I'm like, oh brother, I'm in Penn Station. It's been a while since I've been here. October was the last time I was there, and this time I had time that I could figure out what I wanted to do. I didn't need to find the subway. I just needed to find an exit. So I thought, you know what? I need a tea. Let me see if I could find the Starbucks. And I start wandering around, and I'm specifically listening for the hand dryers in the bathrooms. I work my way around. I find the Starbucks before I find the bathroom, because I figured once I find the bathroom, then I could find all the other things. But I found the Starbucks first, which was great. Got my tea. It was too hot. So I'm standing there as it's steeping, and I've got the lid off, and I'm holding the lid in one hand, the cup in the other hand, and I'm against the wall because I don't want anybody to bump me and have to start the whole process all over again with another Starbucks tea. That finishes. I find the trash can. I dump the tea bags in there. Actually, I used the bathroom trash can to throw the tea bags out. And it's still too hot. So I'm standing there holding the tea, and in my other hand holding the phone. Now, I never use my phone with one hand while I'm trying to operate the touchscreen. I'm going through voicemails, I'm going through text messages, and I'm going through emails. And it's difficult for me, the way my hands work, to do that, especially the emails. But I get to one that was a quote unquote emergency. No one could operate the Zoom that night for one of the NFB of Pennsylvania division meeting. And I was asked if I could do it or get somebody in the tech committee to do it. I'm the chair of the tech committee. That's why they reached out to me. I said, I can't do it because I'm in New York City. I don't know what time I'm going to be back. And I certainly won't be back in time, even if I got in at the time I'm supposed to. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. So I reached out to the tech committee. Somebody stepped up. Thank you, Kosi. Kosi was able to do it. Stacy told her what she had to do, and so forth and so on. And that was finished. Thank God. My tea is still too hot, but now it's getting time where I got to start thinking about going and getting a cab. Well, as I'm standing there near the bathrooms, they're probably about 25 or so feet in front to my right. I realized that there's a set of stairs right there to my left. And I know I could go up there, and that'll take me out to the street. I think it's 7th and I don't remember if it's 32nd, 31st, or 33rd. I think it's 31st, but not 100% sure. And I thought, okay, well, I can go right up there. That's not an issue. So my tea cools down enough to drink it. I drink it too fast because it's a warm day out there. So when I get upstairs and I get in the cab, and lucky for me, there's a taxi stand right to my left as I get out the door. So I go over to that and verify that it's a taxi stand, because I saw a bunch of yellow cars there, and I'm assuming there's not that many yellow cars that aren't taxis in New York. I go over, and a guy, as I'm approaching, asks if I needed a cab. I said yes. I told him where I'm going, 770 Broadway. Great. I get in. I tell the cabbie the same thing, and off we go. We go about a half a block, and we sit in traffic. And I'm thinking, okay, we got plenty of time. Don't stress about it now. It's already hot. I'm already sweating enough. And we start a little, stop, start, stop. Finally, we get free of whatever that was, and we get to the destination, and he stops. And I said, oh, is this 770 out my door? And I was on the passenger side in the back. And he said, no, that's 774. I said, okay, so 770 is across the street, across Broadway? He said, yes. I said, well, do you see where it says Yahoo? He said, no, I don't see anything like that. I said, okay, what street is behind me? What's the street we just crossed over? Because I knew we had crossed over something. He said, that's 10th. I said, all right, what's the street in front? He said, that's Wanamaker Place. I said, that's interesting. So 9th must be further down. So I'm wandering. I get out of the cab after we figure out how to pay, and he had to come get out of the car and come to the back to work the thing because whatever I did wasn't making it accessible, because they usually are accessible. I just did something wrong. That was on me, most likely. Might not have been, but I'll take the blame. We finish up. I get out. I walk down towards Wanamaker Place on the odd side of Broadway. And I get down to the corner and I call, and I don't see anything, obviously, that remotely looked like where I needed to be. And so I call over to Yahoo. I said, okay, I'm at Broadway and Wanamaker Place. Oh, we don't know where Wanamaker Place is. I said, well, where do I need to be? You need to be at Broadway and 9th. That's where we are. I said, okay, I'll call you back when I get there. So I figured, you know what? Let me cross over Broadway. I crossed over Broadway and I wandered back to 10th. And a lady grabs me and she said, can I help you? And I said, I just want to clarify. This in front of us is 10th. She said, yes, it is. I said, to my right is Broadway, correct? Yes. Then I turned around and I said, that street behind us is Wanamaker Place, right? No, that's 9th. Maybe it's Wanamaker Place across Broadway, but that's 9th right behind. I said, okay, great. That's where I need to be. So I wander back down to 9th and I call Yahoo back and I say, hey, I'm at 9th and Broadway. Where do I go? Oh, the entrance is in the middle of the block. I said, okay. So I turn left and go down 9th. And of course, I'm on the wrong side of 9th. I should have crossed over 9th first before I went all the way down. At this point, I'm so far down 9th, it's easier to go around the horn than to double back and do that. So I go down to the next intersection, cross over, come back. And as I get closer, there's a bunch of people hanging out in front of, it must be Tech Central over there, because Meta is over there, Yahoo is there, and there's a whole bunch of people there. And then someone comes up to me, are you David? And I said, yes, I am. Hi, I'm so-and-so. And then another guy says, do you want me to take him up? No, I got him. And so the guy's name was James. And so we go up, I do the interview with and give the feedback. And as we go through the beta version of the Yahoo Fantasy Sports app, and about an hour or so, I'm done. Great. Bryant and I decide to go to lunch. And so we're going to go to Shake Shack, which is only a couple blocks down and right around the corner after you go a couple blocks down. I want to say it was on 3rd, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember because it was so long ago at this point now. So we get to the street. We make the right to go down the street. I have my phone out with Seeing AI open and I'm waving it around. And Brian has Ira on the phone. Ira is not a person. It's a company. It's kind of like Be My Eyes, except they're folks. I forget what they call them. They're the people that help out are bonded. So they're the people you call if you got to look at a bank statement or tax return or something. They're bonded. So if you show them your tax return or your bank statement or credit card statement, and your account is emptied, you're covered. When you use Be My Eyes, it's just connecting. It's like calling a friend who you don't know and not bonded. So if you show them a bank statement and your money's gone, you got no recourse. So he's trying to find it. And I asked Brian to ask the guy to make sure we're on the correct side of the street. We verify that. And I see an A-frame sign. So I point my camera at it. My phone doesn't read anything. So I'm thinking, okay, there's nothing on it. Well, as we get closer, there are pictures on it. I can't make out the pictures. So we just keep walking and we turn into this, in the middle of the block, there is like I don't know that it was a parking lot or one of those roundabouts where you would come in like at a hotel and you'd drop people off, or it could have been a hospital. I don't know what it was, but where we walked into was some sort of office building, I think. We go in, there's a security guy there. We say, hey, is Shake Shack in here? And he's like, no, it's around the corner. And we said, okay. So we go out, we go around, and I could smell it. I knew we were close. Well, as we're getting closer, the IRA agent sees the A-frame sign that I guess he didn't see before. And he said, oh yeah, there's a sign that has pictures of hamburgers on it. I said, okay, that's the one problem with Seeing AI. When you do the short text, it doesn't tell you, hey, there's a picture of a couple of hamburgers there. I would have had to have taken a still of that sign or done the same thing in Be My Eyes. And I do like Be My Eyes much better for the description of images than I do seeing AI. But whatever, we found the door. Brian hangs up from Ira. We go in. They take our order at the front, at the cash register, as opposed through a kiosk, because the kiosks, of course, are not accessible. We order, we go sit down, and they end up bringing us our food, which was great. They were very, very friendly in there. It was honestly at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there were only a couple other tables full. And I don't know if they were new or if they just weren't doing well. I thought it was all right. Brian, it was his first time there. Like I said, he said it was better than Mickey D's or places like that, but nothing out of this world that he'd have to go back to. We head back to his office, and he's talking about a hat that he had lost when he was traveling the last time he had gone traveling, and he's been trying to find it. It was one he got at Nordstrom, and he had gone to Nordstrom. They were out of stock, and he saw that there was a hat store not far around the corner on Broadway. And after we had said our goodbyes after a while, I said, you know what? I don't have enough time to make it all the way back over to B&H, which is not too far from the train station, because if I did that, then I wouldn't be able to go to see Jane in her office and meet her coworkers, which I wanted to do. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to walk down Broadway and find the hat store. So I got the address of the hat store, and I walked down there, and it said it would take 8 to 10 minutes. It took me longer because I'm stopping after I cross every street or two and saying, hey, S lady, where am I at? And she would tell me the address, and I'm like, nope, I got to keep going. And I kept going until I found it. And fortunately, somebody was coming out, and I saw the door open, and I went in there, and there were a couple other people in the store. Finally, when I got to the guy, I had pulled up a picture on my phone of the hat. If you go to blindtechshow.com, Brian had put an article up about the new website, which is now not new. And he's wearing that cap. And I said, do you have a hat like this here? And he said, no. And I said, it's all baseball caps, right? And he said, yes. Now, that doesn't mean that there weren't college teams or football or basketball or whatever in there, but they were all baseball style hats. I thanked him. He said to try Nordstrom. I said, my friend has, keep looking. Thanks. Appreciate it. And I thought, I'm this far down Broadway. I'm going to walk a little bit further to see if I could get into Soho, see how far it is. There's a place in Soho that I love called Ladurée, and it's a French cafe. There's around 85 of them around the world. This one at 350 West Broadway is probably the first one I've been to in this country, and the first one ever that I've been to, although I've had macarons, which are the cookies, I guess you would call them. It's like a sandwich cookie, a meringue top and bottom with either a jelly or some sort of cream middle. It's like a sandwich cookie. Think of an Oreo, except a puffy Oreo made with meringue. And I love them. I had them the first time back in, I want to say 2013, when Jane was doing French exchange, and Anne, the French exchange student, came to our house. That was one of the things she brought us, and I love them. And I have loved them ever since, to the point where they also have a kiosk in Moynihan Train Hall where you can get them. And Jane always brings some home for me when she comes. And you can get them at Wegmans and Costco and wherever. They're just never as good as they are from Ladurée. We've had them in London. And the thing that really stinks is sometimes they have these seasonal flavors, and they are great. We had one in London that was the only place we've ever seen it. And I guess we're going to have to go back there to have it at that time of year. And I guess it was late summer when we got it over there. So I keep walking, and I thought, I'm going to try and make it there, but I got a lot of time. So I stopped on a street corner, and I'm shooting more video. And I was trying to do a blind selfie at one point and mistakenly turned on the live photo, which I can't stand, but there are focus issues with my phone, and not just my phone. Anybody who has VoiceOver and an iPhone comes across these problems. Sometimes it's a combination of what apps might be running. Sometimes it might be a VoiceOver issue. But what a focus issue is, for me, when I touch something that I want to open, I have to hear what it is. Let's say it's an app I want to open. I want to open the Yahoo Fantasy app. So I feel around on the screen for it until I hear Yahoo Fantasy app, and then I double tap. Well, instead of hearing what it is, and it doesn't happen usually when I'm trying to open an app, it does that though when I'm looking for a phone number in my recent calls, and I might hear Billy, and I want to call Billy back. So I go to double tap Billy, but meanwhile, the focus has jumped to somebody else on that list. And so when I double tap, I end up calling that person on that other person on the list. It's happened when I've been in Instagram wanting to back out of individual DMs from people and instead end up calling them. That's embarrassing. So it happens a lot. So I don't know what happened with the camera along the way. I don't know if it was from when I was at 30th Street shooting the B-roll or what it was, but all my photos from that day are live photos. So I have to grab an image of that to then put up on. You can't put a live photo up, I don't think, on Instagram. So I'm at this corner, and I don't remember the cross street. It was Broadway and whatever. And I'm shooting regular video. I'm shooting time-lapse video. The only thing I didn't shoot was slow motion. So I'm shooting that as people are crossing the street, as traffic is going down Broadway, heading south, or heading south, or traffic heading towards the East River on the street, because the traffic pattern for the traffic that was on the road that I was standing next to was heading eastbound. So I do that for a while, and I'm playing around with that. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try. I know there's a Starbucks down the street somewhere. I'm going to try to get to that. And as I'm walking down, I thought, yeah, I'm going to go to Ladurée. I can get a drink there. So I go to a street, and I want to say it was Prince, but I don't know for sure that it was. And I walk down. Now, the one big thing, I've been to this Ladurée quite often. Just about any time we're in New York and we do something in Soho or in the general vicinity of Soho, we go there. Even on our way out, when Jane was at school, it was on the way out. So if there was a backup heading to the Holland Tunnel, we could just go straight, park on West Broadway, cross the street and go into Ladurée, get a couple of macarons, and be on our way. I wanted to do it on my own because some of the intersections in Soho are not signalized. It's a 4-way stop. Sometimes it's just a 2-way stop. And the trouble when you listen to cross a street and it's a signal, you kind of get the pattern down. You could stand there for a minute and you get the pattern down. When there's no signal to get a pattern and the guy over there is going, you don't know. I don't know when it's safe to cross. Now, if there's somebody else at the intersection and they cross, then I cross with them. When a car, it's a street that's heading northbound, so the car is either right in front of me or a little bit off to my left, I can hear it, even if it's an EV, because I could hear it pull up. Otherwise, an EV, when they're just standing still, I don't hear them. So if they're across the other side of the street heading, if it's a road that heads southbound, I'm not going to hear it. And so I've always wondered if I'd be able to find Ladurée. And I took a roundabout way. It was kind of like watching Bugs Bunny going to Pismo Beach and all the clams he could eat. But I did finally make it there, and I was so happy and excited. So I go in, and I did have trouble, honestly, finding the door to actually get in. Again, somebody ended up coming out, so I ended up grabbing the door once I noticed the door open. But again, this whole time trying to find Yahoo and then trying to find the door to Ladurée made me think of that article I talked about a month or two back about the writer who couldn't find his way into the Dunkin' on 50th Street because he was blind. I used all my tools. You use the tools in the phone, and I was able to find it. Had he had Seeing AI, he would have been able to find, maybe he wouldn't have been able to find the doors, but he would have been able to find the Dunkin' just by holding Seeing AI and reading the signs as he waved them, his phone in front of them. He would hear Dunkin' or Dunkin' Donuts if the sign hadn't been updated. So I go in and I said, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to, I have a couple of minutes. I got a couple of macarons and an iced tea. The iced tea was so good. So I told Jane to let me know when she has an event there to find out what iced tea they use, because it had an unusual flavor to it that was so good. It wasn't Earl Grey, but it had it wasn't just black tea. And it was really good. The only bad thing about Ladurée, because I ate in the cafe section and not in the restaurant section further in the back, the person who was my waiter was also somebody waiting behind the counter, helping people who would come up to the counter. So when I paid, I had to get up and go over to the cash register. And I knew I had 5 ones, maybe 7 ones, a 5, and a 20. And my bill was over $12, so I couldn't use the 5 and the 7 ones because I needed to give him a tip also. So I took the 20 out and I handed him the 20, and I wanted to give him, I don't remember if it was $2 or $3. I want to say 2, but maybe it was 3, whatever it was. Well, as I'm standing there, I've got my white cane that's now propped up against my shoulder. I'm holding the cup of iced tea because it's a to-go cup, so I'm going to take it with. And then I have the money. So I have my money that was in my pocket and then the money he just handed me. Well, the cup started to slip. So I transferred all the money into one hand, grabbed the cup, and then took the first 2 bills off of the pile that was in my other hand. Well, the first 2 bills were the 5 and a 1. And so I gave him those bills. And I didn't realize this until I got into the cab. I took the rest of the money, put it in my pocket, and left. Sorry, not a cab, the Uber. Ordered my Uber out front and got in the car and went to Jane's office. And on the way from Ladurée to Jane's office at Purple PR over in Chelsea, I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. I mixed up the money and I gave him too much. And when I got to Jane's and I was waiting on her, I texted Liz. I said, there's a reason I don't carry cash. And here's what just happened. And I told her, and I was frustrated by it. Again, it wasn't a lot of money. It was $3 or $4 that I was out because, again, I don't remember if I wanted to give him 3 or if I wanted to give him 2 ones, but I ended up giving him 3 bills, one if it was 3, one of which was a 5, or I gave him 2 bills, one of which was a 5. Again, it wasn't a 20. It wasn't too huge of a problem, other than I realized that, hey, I just made a mistake, and this is why cash is bad for me, and then I've got to take more time with it or not use it. And so I was mad, but I got to Jane's office without any issues, and the Uber driver told me, it's right. Just get out I was on the passenger side, so I scooted across and I got out on the driver's side, and he told me it was directly in front. So I texted Jane and told her I was downstairs because she's got to sign me in. And I go up to her floor, which I don't even know what it was. And it's just one giant room. And then down one end, there are, I guess it was 4 different conference rooms with glass walls. And it was basically like looking at a restaurant or looking at a whole bunch of picnic tables. That's what this office was, with a whole bunch of people sitting at them. There is no way I could work like that with all the chatter that's going on, people on calls to clients, on calls to editors, typing away, the tap, tap, tap of the keyboards. Oh my God. I don't know how people can work like that. I just don't have that I have a focus issue there. But I got to meet some of her coworkers. One that I was especially excited to meet was Kiwana. Jane had interned at Purple when she was in college. She graduated in 2019. And Kiwana, when Jane tried to get a job at Purple and they didn't have anything open, Kiwana helped her get a job at the first agency Jane was at. I don't know if she knew somebody there. I don't know what she did, but she helped Jane get in there. So I've been wanting to meet her. And when Jane started at Purple, it was great that she was going to be back with Kiwana. And then right after Jane started at Purple, Kiwana ended up leaving for a little bit, which was disappointing, but she has since come back. And so I got to meet her and talk with her because I think very highly of her, and I was excited to meet her. I got to talk to one of Jane's other coworkers, Gabby. A couple other folks weren't there. A couple other people were busy, so I didn't get to talk to them individually. But it was great to get to meet them. And I was also happy because I was down to 12% on my battery because I was stopping every 5 seconds to ask where I was when I was walking to the hat store and then to Ladurée. And I was shooting the B-roll video, and I was doing all sorts of things on my phone that I like I said, 12%. So Jane gave me a charging cord, plugged it in. So I'm charging my phone. It was nice and cool in the room. And so I just hung out there for, I don't know, half an hour or so. And then we ended up walking down to the train station. And we got to the train station after Jane was done working. And I guess it was back either over the Christmas holidays or when Jane was home at another time between Memorial Day and the holidays. Jane had asked Liz to get a jar of Vlasic pickles. So there was a jar of pickles in there. So when Jane left, they were still in there. She hadn't even opened them. So I'm like, oh, one day I was eating lunch. I said, oh, I'll have a pickle. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So all of a sudden I'm on this pickle kick. And I love pickles. When we go to any Jewish deli and they sit that big bowl of pickles on the table for you, like at Junior's or some of the other places, I just constantly eat them. My dad used to tell me, you're eating too many, you're going to get sick. I never did get sick from pickles, though. So I've been on this pickle kick. So she said, oh, it just so happened that she was coming home this weekend. And so when I found out I'd be doing this thing at Yahoo the same day she's coming home, it was great. I figured, okay, I'm going to get on the same train as her and we'll be able to talk on the way home and so forth and so on. So that's why we went to the train station together, because she was coming home for the long weekend. And we go and we get Jake's pickles. And I'm like, come on, let's open them and have some. She's like, no, the container doesn't close right. Don't open them. And I said, okay. So we didn't open them. And then we got some macarons. And then we thought, you know what, let's go over to the Red Cap so we can get on the train when it comes in. It was a Vermonter, so obviously it was going to come down. We wanted to make sure we got on fairly early so that we could sit together. We wanted to sit together. And we get a notification earlier in the day, the train was 5 or 10 minutes late, no big deal. But as we're there in the station, they make an announcement about trains heading from New York City towards Newark. None of them were running. There was a downed wire and all service had stopped from New York south. After about a half an hour, it was all traffic between New York and Philadelphia had stopped. So if they were heading north, they were stopping them in Philly, unless they were past Philly, of course. And anything other, they were stopping them in New York. So we asked the Red Cap before most of the mayhem started, hey, can we get on when it gets here, even though if we're going to have to sit on it for a few minutes? And he said, yeah. And so he takes us down, we get on. And we get on, I don't know, 10 to 7, 7 o'clock, something like that. And there's no updates on when we could go. And meanwhile, Jane and I haven't eaten dinner. Jane was hoping to get home and have a sandwich when she got home. She had Liz get her lunch meat, and she was very excited for that. And I just wanted pizza from one of the places upstairs in the train station, but we didn't want to leave because we didn't want to lose the seats or miss the train. Well, we probably wouldn't have had either happen. And we sat there until the train pulled out of the station between 10 after 10 and quarter after 10. And I'm texting with Brian, and then he calls me, and I'm texting with Liz. And when Brian called me, that was what ended up getting us going, because we're talking and then we started. I said, hey, we're moving. And of course, as we're moving, we're going into the tunnel, and Brian and I got disconnected. He couldn't believe we were there that long, though. So instead of getting home, walking in the door at 8:45, we walked in the door at 12:45 at night. And obviously too late to eat a sandwich or just about anything else. We had small, I may have had some berries or something. Maybe we had a pickle. I don't remember what we had, but we had something small. Ziggy was going nuts upstairs. So we let him out of the bedroom so he could come and see Jane and play with Jane for a little bit. Once he got tired out, I took him back upstairs, and he went to bed. And then I went to bed a little later. I had done some stuff because I was out of the house all day. I had to do some stuff on the computer. And that was the trip. So it was just funny how, had I been on my own, it would have been a different story. I would have not worried about where I sat on the train. As long as I got on the train, it didn't matter. Because it didn't matter if I sat next to somebody I knew or didn't know, because it would have just been me. So I would have just waited, just found out what stairwell to go down and called it a day there, and then had the pizza before I left. But it was Jane and I, and we wanted to sit together and so forth. So we spent some time, Jane and I, and Liz and Jacob too, got to spend some time together for that long weekend. And of course, when Jane comes home, she always has places in order for, on this day, I want this for dinner. On this day, I want that for dinner. And so there's like a shopping list for Liz when she comes home. It's kind of funny. But they were my trips. And again, the biggest part of the trip to New York, besides getting to see Brian and give some feedback on the Yahoo Fantasy app, and besides that with Yahoo, I've also been helping this guy named Ray. And he's asking me questions that I couldn't answer because I play hockey and I play football. So he's like, in baseball, when you do this, I said, you know what? Let me see if I can get on into a league. So I got into a league. So I'm actually now playing Yahoo Fantasy Baseball just so I could help him out and answer his questions without having to call Brian and say, hey, this is what Ray's having trouble with. What should I tell him to do? And so Brian would walk through it with me. And I thanked him. And I thought that's too much to keep asking Brian if I have to do that. But going to Ladurée on my own was, I don't want to say a bucket list thing, but something that I wanted to prove to myself that I could do on my own. It would kind of be like the next thing for me to do on my own would be to go someplace foreign. And by foreign, I mean where they don't speak English, and do that on my own and see how I could manage. First of all the signs are going to be in Spanish. I don't know how my phone would handle that. I don't know if I'd have to take a picture and then have it translated. I don't know how it would work. And I guess there's places in this country I could I could test that out on. But it was so nice to be able to do that on my own. It was so rewarding to me, not because I had the delicious iced tea and the 2 passion fruit macarons, which passion fruit is my favorite from Ladurée, if you have to know. It was just to me, it was a big achievement. I know to most folks, not a big deal because you just look down the street. Oh, there it is right over there. To me, I can't do that. And so to do it on my own, I was very happy and excited. And so that was the takeaway from there. So it was nice to getting away again in a few weeks. We're going to Orlando. Now, Liz is flying down with me to the NFB National Convention. The NFB National Convention in Orlando we're leaving the 2nd. I'm coming back the 9th. She's coming back the 6th. A lot of cool things going on there, a lot of work that I'm going to have to do, but I'm looking forward to it. So obviously I'll have some things to talk about there. And I'm hoping that my next podcast is not too far into the future because I do have some other things scheduled. I have a meeting out in Harrisburg next week. So I'm hoping that now that I have this set up right, fingers crossed that it is set up right, I can get back on track and get episodes out a little more quickly. But that's all I have for today. I really do appreciate you listening. And if you would, please, if you're shopping at Amazon.com, please use my affiliate link. You can just type in iCantCU.com/Amazon. That'll take you directly to the Amazon.com homepage. Shop as you normally do. Check out as you normally do. It doesn't cost you anything more. And I earn a small commission on your qualifying purchase. Again, that's iCantCU.com/Amazon. Thanks so much. I really do appreciate your support. Show notes are available over on the website, iCantCU.com/265, iCantCU.com/265, numerically speaking. And remember, iCantCU sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 characters long. iCantCU.com/265. Reach out to me on the socials, as I previously mentioned, at David Benj on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, X, same thing as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and on YouTube, where you can listen to this episode. And if you're watching or want to watch on YouTube, it's youtube.com/iCantCU, same 7 letters. Reach out via email, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com. Questions, comments, show ideas, whatever you've got, I want to hear from you. You can also call 646-926-6350. You've got up to 3 minutes. Please leave your name and town if you do leave a voicemail. Again, 646-926-6350. I would really love to hear from you. If you say something nice, I'll play it on an upcoming episode. Thanks again for listening. Be well, stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.